Have you ever heard of something called learned helplessness? Let's talk about it because it's something I've seen a lot lately and I want to discuss it with you guys. So, learned helplessness is something I've been seeing a lot more lately in the past maybe 10 years or so, maybe 15 years on the internet. I don't really see it too much in real life, but that's probably because people in real life don't express the way they think as much as they do online because they have the shield of the internet to protect them. But this is something I've seen from a lot of people all over the place. I mean, like I said, in real life too, but not as much as on the internet. And what I mean by that is this: learned helplessness is basically somebody who, and I'm sure some of you have either met this person, know this person, or are this person. People who are in this chronic state where they think they can't win. It's basically people who are sort of, I don't want to call it loser energy or loser mentality, even though it certainly goes into that. I did a whole video on loser mentality a few weeks ago and winner mentality. But the reason why this is slightly different than that is because I think what happens is people have been conditioned to believe that they can't succeed. And I think a lot of that has to do with the type of people they surround themselves with and what they choose to spend their time on and their belief system. So something that I need to make very clear, because a lot of folks seem to have a real problem with this, and most of the folks that have a problem with this are people that have this, this issue. And that is the fact that whatever your belief system is, you can change it. And when I say this, I'm not talking about necessarily political or religious belief system. You can change that too. You are a free person. But what I'm talking about is more so a belief system and whether or not you can achieve what you want to do and achieve your goals and become a winner. The thing is, and I've noticed this a lot with younger people, and I think it has to do with them sort of being immature and not really experienced in life. The thing about life that every person goes through is that life is basically a game of you go through life, you win some, you lose some, but when you lose, the L becomes learning. And I've talked about this before. If you're a winner, you're going to learn from your mistakes. And so that's just how life is. That goes for anything. Anything as simple as playing a video game and losing to a boss, and then later on figuring out how to beat that boss, or later on in life, in a more adult example, you want to get a girlfriend and you get rejected by like 10 girls, but then the 11th one says yes. See what I'm saying? Like, that's the way it works. And so as you go through life and you start losing more and more and then learning, you start to develop this sort of invisible barrier, like this sort of shield around you where you get stronger mentally. And thus, when you lose, it doesn't feel so devastating. It really doesn't. This is why I oftentimes encourage people, like younger guys that I used to coach many years ago. I often encourage them to go out and talk to women, even if they're shy, even if they're not even women they're trying to date. I mean, just women, because a lot of guys have this fear of girls, especially pretty ones. But if you talk to girls, whether they're pretty or not, that's up to you. And even old ladies, you start to develop this sort of rapport and these skills on how to properly talk to them without coming off like a creep or without coming off insecure, right? But that all comes from training. Some of you guys are able to do this very instinctually. Some of you guys learned this when you were in middle and high school. Others didn't, especially those of you who are graduating, who have graduated high school in the past few years, because the COVID, I feel like, put a real squeeze on people getting their full dose of social interaction like they would in high school. You understand what I'm saying? Because there was a lot of, stay-at-home classrooms and homeschooling and things like that. But this learned helplessness oftentimes comes from within, but it started from the outside. These people have conditioned themselves that no matter what they do, they can't win. They can't get the career they want. They can't get the partner they want. They can't get the finances in order. They can't get the whatever. And that ultimately leads to what's called analysis paralysis, where they have these desires, but they're afraid to actually make the jump. Now, again, anxiety. I'm not going to sit here and crucify these people or insult them, because that's part of life. Part of life is getting through that very fear. It's getting through. Life is basically a struggle of Struggling, I mean, it's a struggle of struggling, overcoming, struggling, overcoming, struggling, overcoming. If you succumb to your failures, you still have to find a reason to live. You still have to find a motivation to get up every morning. And it goes back to that other Speakdom I did about taking responsibility for yourself. I've had friends where they are stuck in like really bad work, like jobs, really bad jobs they don't like. And when you really look at it, you can sit there and blame the education system, blame your parents, blame the government, and there's probably a little bit of that in there, but ultimately it falls on you. If you are getting up every morning upset at having a low income job or whatever, it's partially your fault. I'm not going to say it's fully your fault because there's other factors contributing to what shapes you as a person. I would never do that. And I know that the tough love inside of me would tell you, hey, stop being a bitch and get up and make a change, right? But the reality is that I'm also old enough and smart enough to know that there are outside factors. For example, this is not going to get conspirazoid on you, but this is something I've always believed. People who are at the top of the food chain hold people down under the food chain. That is something that is a fact of life. The richest people in the world oftentimes have fooled poor people into staying poor by giving them the wrong advice or giving them the wrong concepts of living and creating a belief system that doesn't really work for them. So that goes back to what I said earlier. You can change your belief system. You can change this idea that you can't win, but you have to start. You're not going to win unless you try. And if you fail, you got to keep trying. You have to. You have no choice but to continue trying, because if you don't, you'll never be a winner. You'll never be a winner. And obviously I'm referring to more of a big picture thing. We're not talking about little things, even though it can apply to that too. We're talking about big picture things. What I mean by that is something that, like, if you want to retire a millionaire, you can start working towards that now. You can start now working towards that. And it's very possible. Believe it or not, it's very possible. And I'm not here to be this, motivational speaker, because a lot of people see these videos as being me being a motivational speaker, and there is somewhat of that in there, but you also have to understand that, I'm coming to you because I see a lot of people in the comments, and I've interacted with the community long enough to know that some people out there are in pain, and some people out there have a lot of potential. I believe most of you have potential. You want to know why I think that? Because you've clicked into this video. If you have clicked into this video, there's only a few reasons as to why you would watch this video. One, because you want to know what I have to say about it. Two, because you trust me, which goes both ways. And three, because you might find something in this video that could help you get out of your rut. And that's exactly why the video is here. Because I actually want to help people. It's my way of giving back, because so many people have been so good to me for the past few years, and I've produced content, now going on 8 years, actually longer than that, because I had a podcast in 2008. So I've been producing content for a very long time, but on YouTube here since 2015. And a lot of you guys, by being loyal and by being, always here for me and watching the content, enjoying it, it's the only way I can think of to actually give back, in a meaningful way. Because I believe that everybody who clicked this video has potential. Because if not, if you didn't have a potential, you wouldn't have watched this. You would have just kept scrolling. You would have gone to go watch some TikTok shit. Or you would have gone to go watch some like movie nerd shit. But you chose to click this because there's something about this video title that, not baited you, but piqued your interest. And you probably have heard other videos like this before and you want to change, right? I mean, the majority of people click it for that reason. So the thing is, if you're one of these people that is sort of this, constantly in this mentality that you can't win, it's false, it's bullshit. You can win, but it's going to require work, and it's going to require starting to work. Like, you have to start and you have to go and you have to move. You got to make the moves, man, whatever that is. I mean, I know people who so often, and it's very cowardly. These are the kind of people that I don't want to be around. That I mentioned, like toxic people that I choose not to be around. The people who, before they even try something, they list all the reasons to why they can't achieve it. Now, again, this used to be me. That's how I know. Because this was me at one point. I'm not when I make these videos, y'all, I'm not pointing the finger at anybody but myself because I've done it. But I don't do it anymore. I haven't done it for years. But when I was younger, I would talk myself out of doing things because of my own fear of failure or insecurities or whatever. But as I've grown as a person, I've gotten better. The good thing is that most of you guys watching this are men. Some of y'all are women, but most of y'all are men. The good news is that when it comes to guys, the biological time clock works different than a woman. A woman, if she wants to have a baby, and there's a reason why I'm talking about this here, she has a finite number of eggs. Eventually, she'll get menopause. She can't have kids. If you're a guy, you could have kids up until your 60s, maybe even more than that, right? I'm not saying you should wait that long, but if you're one of those guys out there who's like in his 30s and still hasn't found the right girl, that's fine, bro. You got time, because in your 40s, you may end up making more money, feeling more confident, getting more startup companies going, whatever your goals are. And then it just sort of clicks with you. Contrary to what social media may tell you, right? And what the media will tell you. And this is not conspirazoid shit. It's stuff that I really believe. The media and social media and other losers will drag you down and put you in this fucking mental state. And I don't want you to be there. I'm telling you now not to be there. Don't be like them. The key to being successful is not being like everybody else. You know why? Because everybody else, the vast majority of people, don't get that success. And I wish they did. Obviously, in a utopian world, everybody would do what they want and be happy. But that's just not the world that we live in. And there are conditions that are stopping us. But that doesn't mean that we can't put our best foot forward and give it our best and do the best that we can. And most of the time, it pays off. You just have to not be so hard on yourself if it doesn't pay off, because that's life, dude. And I know it's easy for me to say, but it's really not, because I've been in that state where I have lost and I have been an emotional wreck, crippled emotional wreck many times. Dude, I get it. Nobody out there understands more than me, except for those going through it, right? Which is a lot of people, the majority of people. But this idea that you can't win, I can't win the stock market, I can't find the right girlfriend, I can't find the right career. Start saying I can instead of I can't, and then do it.